So in this lecture, I'm going to teach you how to create a virtual machine. Now, this is the first thing that you have to do before you install Server 2012. You have to create the virtual machine that you're going to install the operating system on, okay? So we're going to go ahead and start Oracle VM VirtualBox. All right, now we're going to click New in the top left corner. And now here's where we create the name and select the operating system that's going to go on the virtual machine. So under version, we're going to go ahead and drop down and select Windows 2012 64-bit. And you'll notice that there's no 32-bit for Windows Server 2012, and that's because it's not offered. You cannot get Server 2012 in 32-bit. Okay, so 9 times out of 10, you're not going to just spell domain controller for the name. So there's a kind of a common naming scheme that you'll find when you get out in the field, and every place that I've been that I've worked at, usually it's your location. So if you live in Los Angeles, it might be LADC 101. So LA for Los Angeles, and then DC for domain controller, and then it's our first domain controller, because sometimes you'll have two, and the second would be 112 or 12. There's also 102. I'm sorry. There's also, you can have them 111, 112. They like to do things like that. So that's kind of how people out in the field will name their servers. So I'm going to go ahead and call mine W for William. Okay, so WDC, and I'm just going to go with 111. Okay, so it's William, it's a domain controller, and it's 111, so that tells me it's the first domain controller. All right, so we have Windows, Microsoft Windows. You can, if you're on Linux or Mac, you can choose that here. We're going to select the version 2012, and then we're going to click Next. Now, I'm going to leave my server at 2 gigabytes of RAM. Okay, so 2048 is 2 gigabytes of RAM. I have 8 gigs on my computer, so I could move it all the way up to 8, but then my operating system wouldn't have anything. So you can see that it's kind of read out there. So the minimum that you want to give it is 2 gigs. You might be able to get away with less. I'm not entirely sure on that since it's a virtual machine. But I'm going to leave mine at 2 and click Next. Now we're going to create the virtual hard disk, and this is going to take up space on your computer, but it's all virtual, so it won't be, you're not going to be able to just, open Windows Explorer and navigate to the virtual disk. You can't just open it like that. It's going to be its own file, and we're going to go ahead and create that now. Okay, so this is where we can select a personal, file format. We're not going to need to mess with this, so just go ahead and click Next. All right, so you have an option here. In VMware, this is often called thin provisioning or thick provisioning. So what we're doing right now is, if we say I want a 40 gigabyte hard drive for this virtual machine, we can set it to be a fixed size where that file, the file format that we selected before is for the virtual hard disk file. We can say that file is going to be fixed at 40 gigabytes. It'll never go up and it'll never go down. Or you can set it to dynamically allocated, which means the file will get no larger than 40 gigabytes, but if you only have 10 gigs on the system, then the file size will be 10 gigabytes. Okay, so in VMware, like ESXi and vSphere, this is referred to as thin provisioning or thick provisioning of the hard drive. So we're going to do dynamically allocated because we don't want to waste the space. I don't want to just use 40 gigabytes if I'm not actually going to put 40 gigabytes on the server. If you have a 100 gigabyte hard drive and you create, we'll say 10 servers, sorry, and you give them all 40 gigabyte hard drives. Well, you can kind of do simple math there. That's 400 gigabytes. You only have 100 gigabytes on your server, so it's not going to work. You're going to end up not having enough space. So you can set those to dynamically allocated or thin provision the hard drives so that they only use what they need at one time. And then if, say, one server needs to go up to 40 gigabytes, then you go ahead and do that. So it's kind of like, playing a guessing game. Well, I don't think all my servers are going to use all 40 gigabytes, but just in case I need one of them to go up to 40 gigabytes, I'm going to go ahead and set it to dynamically allocated. All right. So we're going to click Next. Now this is where we select the file size of our hard drive, and I'm going to go ahead and choose 40. Sorry about that. And you can set yours to whatever you want. I like to do 40. 25 is okay, but I would go ahead and set mine to 40. I guess you could do 35 if you're tight on space. All right, now I'm going to move mine off of the C drive. I want mine to be on my 3 terabyte. Okay, let's see here. And I'll just, actually I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder in this other window. Virtual machine. All right, so virtual machine Udemy. Open that. I'm going to save this VDI file right there. So that's where our hard disk is going to be located. And I'm going to select create. Okay, so over here, when I go to Windows Explorer and I go to the location where I created the virtual machine, you can see the VDI file. Now we chose that file format and this is the name of our server. Notice it's only 2,000 kilobytes or 2 megabytes. If we would have selected fixed size, this file would be 40 gigabytes. Okay? Alright, just a note there. Alright, so we have our virtual machine. We've got it created. We can see here the video memory has 128 megs. It's got a 40 gigabyte hard drive. You just kind of scroll down, you see it's 2 gigs of RAM. You can kind of scroll down and just look at the different things, the different settings. This uses a network adapter. It doesn't have any shared folders.